Good evening. Revered Swami Sarvapriyananda Maharaj, revered Swami Harinamanandaji, and dear friends, it's lovely to be here once again. I think within the same year, I was here in January. When he was talking about how I started, when I joined as a monk, I started by teaching and I've been teaching ever since. And it's also true that I was in charge of a teacher's training college. But that just reminds me of, was it George Bernard Shaw who said, those who can, do. Those who cannot, teach. And he said, those who cannot teach, teach teachers. Teach teachers. So I was in charge of... I said this once at the beginning of a talk, and another senior Swami, Sarvapriyananda, was sitting nearby. He said, yeah, and those who cannot teach teachers, they become the principal of a teacher's training college. Be that as it may. What beautiful music. Thank you. And the song, the person who's written that, is she here?
He's now in Florida.
Oh, okay.
No.
The lyrics.
The composer is no longer with us.
Oh, she has passed away.
But the person that composes many of the songs is in Florida, but not this one.
Yeah, he's not so good.
Krishna Sadhika, that was the name, Krishna Sadhika. What a beautiful song. Do you remember those lines from the beginning until the end of time? How could such love be extinguished? I was thinking about that, and I connected it to what we read after meditation when Swami was reading out that old Indian story about the demon king who hated God and his son Prahlad, the little boy who loved God, and how the father, the demon, tortured Prahlad. It's a story that every little Hindu boy has heard. And we take it as a story. We take it as a story, a mythology. But what was interesting was, after hearing that story, Sri Ramakrishna was weeping. And it just struck me when I was sitting there, just struck me there. I never thought about it earlier. Why would he weep? Is it a story? Or is it possible that ages before human history began, maybe there was something like that? And maybe there was a little boy, today we call it a demon king and a little boy, but maybe there was a little boy who loved God, who is dead and gone thousands and thousands of years ago, but God remembers him and God weeps for him. Maybe. It's quite possible. How could such love be extinguished? We read in the life of Teresa, Saint Teresa, how she one day got a vision of a strange man with a beard and flowing robes, and who looked at her with shining eyes. And before she could ask anything, he asked her, "Who are you?" And she said, "I'm Teresa of Jesus." "And who are you?" she asked that figure. And he replied, "I'm Jesus of Teresa." You see, how could such love be extinguished? From the beginning till the end of time. There's this Sufi poet who, a beautiful poem, he writes that even when I'm dead and gone, the very grass on my grave, which quivers in the wind that sweeps through the cold graveyard, the grass on my grave, it'll quiver with love for you. It's my love which is making it quiver. That's the imagination of the poet. I was just thinking, tomorrow you have a service for Balaram, who was a devotee of long standing. So we have a service like all other human beings, and we remember these people. And one day they fade away slowly from our memory. But there is one who remembers. God remembers. Others may forget, but God does not forget. How could such love be extinguished? Very beautiful, truly. How do we get that love? When we read about it, we are inspired. But how do we really feel about it? I was going to talk about philosophy, but when I heard that song, and I'm going to talk about something higher than philosophy. I'm going to talk about the fruit of philosophy, which is love. How do you actually get that love? How do you feel it? And that is what Lord Jesus Christ tells us. In the Sermon on the Mount, he gathered his closest disciples. He saw so many people, and he gathered his closest disciples, and he took them on top of a mountain and started speaking to them. And Sri Ramakrishna would do that often, when his closest disciples, Swami Vivekananda and Swami Brahmananda and Shivananda, when they would come, he would gather these young boys in a room, and he would actually lock the door. He would take a look outside. Nobody's listening. Often these great spiritual personalities, they regard it as the most precious secrets, the most precious teachings in human civilization, little knowing that most of us couldn't care less. So they are very careful. Nobody should listen to it, though they do not know that even if people do listen, they think, okay, it's something nice, but not very important. Swami Suhitananda, the General Secretary of our order, he told me once that he used to serve Swami Premeshananda, a very great Swami who has passed on, was a disciple of the Holy Mother, Ma Sharada. And sometimes Swami Premeshananda would say to Swami Suhitananda, who was a young monk at that time, "I'm going to tell you the greatest secret. Make sure nobody is listening." And Swami Suhitananda knew what he was going to say. He had heard it again and again. So he would say, "Go on, Swami, tell me. Nobody's listening." "Are you sure?" "Yes, tell me." And then the Swami would say, "Well, I'll tell you something. Sri Ramakrishna is God himself." And Swami Suhitananda would say, "Yeah, I know that." "Oh, you do?" "Yeah, and everybody knows it." "They do." "Yes, they know it, and they don't care. Nobody cares, really." Nobody's bothered. Because after all, we do not know what God is and what is the incarnation of God. It is just words for most of us. It's not a tremendous revelation. It is to a person who really begins to understand. For Premishanji, it's a tremendous thing because he begins to understand. I've never seen him, but Maharaj has seen him many times, Swami Premishananda. The Lord Jesus tells us in the Sermon on the Mount, how can you feel that love of God? And what he says is this: blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. In the Sermon on the Mount, I think that is the jewel in the crown. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Once I read out, when I was reading the Sermon on the Mount, and there was this book on theology by Hans Küng, a great Christian theologian. In fact, he was the teacher of the last Pope. He's still living, the Hans Küng, Catholic theologian. And he's written this big book on being Christian. And there's a section on the Sermon on the Mount, where what is the meaning of the Sermon on the Mount? What's the purpose of these teachings? And he gives different theories. He says the Christian church holds the Sermon on the Mount is meant for a chosen few, monks, those who are going to be his apostles, those who are, so that's what Jesus chose them and gave the teachings for them, but it's not for everybody. It's for Christian perfection. And there are many theories. For example, Tolstoy says that the Sermon on the Mount is meant for establishing the kingdom of heaven on earth. So if people could follow that, the kingdom of heaven would be established here on earth. And so on and so forth. But none of them say that the Sermon on the Mount is meant for realizing God, for seeing God. That's what, when I read it, that's what it feels like to me. You do this and you will have the vision of God, you will have the presence of God, you will find God in your life. I thought, is it just me or... So I decided to take the Sermon on the Mount and I read it out to a group of the young men who are going to be monks, where I was teaching in Belur Mutt. The novices, I was teaching them for the last 7 or 8 years. So I took it to class and I read it out in class. And then I asked those young men who are going to be Hindu monks, what is this meant for? What do you think? What is the purpose of this Sermon on the Mount? And they all said, for realizing God, for seeing God. So God realization, the vision of God, making God a reality in our lives, that's the purpose. And the Lord Christ says, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. How do you become pure in heart? And what does it mean anyway to be pure in heart? Swami Prabhavananda, in this beautiful little volume, the Sermon on the Mount according to Vedanta, he says, try to think of God. Go on, do it just now. And what you feel is, you have a fleeting feeling of something divine, something elevated, sublime, and then it goes. Other thoughts come in, other emotions come in, memories come in, worries and anxieties come in, sufferings of the body, the world rushes into the head, and that is what is meant by the impurity of the heart, which does not allow you to hold on to God in thought. You don't have to make an effort to think about the world. It's there. It's effortless. And for those who are pure in heart, those who have cultivated this inner purity, for them the thought of God is effortless. For them the thought of God is effortless. So how do we cultivate this inner purity of heart? And that's how I understand the Sermon on the Mount. He starts off with, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are the poor in spirit. What does it mean to be poor in spirit? It means to be humble. I'm reminded of, in Bhagavad Gita, the 13th chapter, Krishna tells Arjuna, what are the qualifications for attaining Brahmagyana, the highest Vedantic knowledge? And he starts off the list with this, Amanitvam Adambhitvam. Amanitvam Adambhitvam are exactly this. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for they shall see, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Amanitvam, not being proud, transcending pride. Swami Prabhavanji writes, pride of learning, pride of coming from an aristocratic family. If you're from India, you know there's this whole caste business, pride of caste, pride of wealth, pride of youth and good looks, and so many things. Or here it could be pride of race. So there are these things, which tie us down to this mundane world. And Being poor in spirit means to rise above this, to rise, to cleanse oneself of this so that one is ready to receive God. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Swami Prabhupada, about different kinds of pride. He writes, also another kind is that thinking that I know what is spirituality and what kind of spirituality should be taught to me. I think I detect a note of exasperation there. When he was here in 1930s or 40s, I think he must have come across this a lot. That's why he writes this. That when I go to the guru or the teacher, there also I know what I'm going to be taught. This is what you should teach me. The Zen disciple who goes to the Zen master, and whatever the master tells him, he says, oh, I know this, I read that book. Oh, I know this, I heard it from that teacher. And then the master said, well, I understand the disease now. So he said, let's have tea. And he starts pouring tea into the disciple's cup. It's full to the brim. It overflows. That old story, we know that. And the disciple says, stop. It's full. And the master said, exactly. How can you taste my tea if your cup is not empty? Unless you empty your cup, how can you taste my tea? Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. The possibility of the kingdom of heaven, the possibility of God exists when I bow down, when I learn to, when I admit there is something for me to learn. Adambhitvam, the word which Krishna uses, it's very interesting. It's a form of pride. One form of it is, even among religious people, one form of it is a show of religiousness. A show of religiousness. In India, for example, religiousness is connected to purification. So there'll be people who'll be sprinkling Ganges water. There's a story, an old story about, in a 12th century drama, about this person who makes a show of religiousness, and wherever he goes, he takes this Ganges water, which is supposed to be purifying. So we use it, we sprinkle it in puja, in worship. So he takes a pot of Ganges water and a kusha, a blade of grass, and every step he takes, he sprinkles it very ostentatiously. People know that he's a very religious person. And the story is that he is invited to the council of gods, and he walks in there, sprinkling water there too. And they invite him to sit there. This is a seat for you, and he sprinkles water on that. And he said, this is polluted, that's polluted. And Brahma, the creator of the universe, was the demiurge, the creator of the universe. He says, well, I can't see anywhere you can sit, but you can come and sit on my lap. And he goes and on his lap he sprinkles water. It's Prabodha Chandrodaya, the old Sanskrit drama. But it's true, it's not just a story. Swami Suhitananda, he told me about a senior monk many decades ago in Kashi, in Benares. In those days, there was no mail, no email or anything like that. He used to write postcards. So the postman would come with the postcard, and this old Swami would tell the postman, throw it down here, the postcard, on the ground. And the postcard would be put on the ground, and the Swami would take out his Ganges water and sprinkle it with water till it became illegible. And then he would bring it to Suhitananda and said, my boy, could you read this out to me? I can't read it. So this would happen again and again. It's a show of religion. And it's not just in India. Here there's another kind of, I have seen sometimes, you go to people, especially in the New Age movement, you find people meditating. And when you're meditating, you expect peace and bliss. Now, I have to show that I have got a lot of peace and bliss. So I've seen a lot of these people, young people, sitting and meditating, and they have these big smiley faces pasted on, Their looks pasted out. You don't have to show that you are in bliss. So to show what I am not, that is the gross form of spiritual pride. To show what we are not. What happens is, people with such pride, when you go to learn something, such people cannot learn because there is somewhere deep inside a feeling that I know it. So whenever he or she hears something, there's an automatic tendency to, that you have heard the bed of Procrustes, where the person is cut to fit the bed. So the knowledge is force fit into my preconceived notions, and I get the feeling that now I know it. and I'm satisfied. But then I don't learn. I don't learn. Especially in this new age, in this age of ours, it's wonderful because all the great religious traditions of the world are available. It's a supermarket of religion, a supermarket of spirituality. We call it a mall of, so everything is available. But remember, all of these are very ancient traditions, developed over centuries, millennia. There's a great amount of wisdom there. So you cannot just pick and choose and think that you have understood. So when we have to go to these traditions to learn, go to Buddhism, to Sufi mysticism, to Vedanta, we go with that openness, not showing that I know. Rather, I do not know, poor in spirit. Then only there is the possibility of the kingdom of heaven. But this is just the gross form of pride, spiritual pride, to show what we are not spiritually. But there is a subtle form also, which is just the opposite, to show what we are. Now, if I have got some good qualities, I meditate a lot, I am very learned, I'll just subtly let people know what my spiritual excellence is. And they are true. It is there within me. But the moment I show it, that's also another form of spiritual pride. So both of these, displaying what I'm not, gross form, it's silly. You can easily identify such a person. And such a person does not know, unfortunately, the other people laugh at him or her. But there's a subtle form, much more poisonous, where really we have some excellence within us, something that is developed, and we show it, display it for people to admire us. That's also a spiritual pride. You transcend that, poor in spirit. And then comes, blessed are they who mourn, they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Mourn, we do mourn. So many of us mourn. We mourn for things of the world. Sri Ramakrishna says, how many people cry for God? People cry for children, people cry for wealth. But how many people shed a tear for God? Not many. Very few people cry for God. He even said, I think, if you cry sincerely for God for 3 days, you will get God. And it seems, I remember Swami Bhuteshanandaji, of revered memory, the 12th president of the order. We were very junior novices, and we were doing saluting him, and then Swami Chetananandaji from St. Louis, he came and he was asking Swami Bhuteshanandaji, here's a question. An actress from Hollywood, she said, Swami, I tried it. I cried straight 3 days for God and nothing happened. So Sri Ramakrishna says, if you cry for God for 3 days, you should see God. But here's this actress who said, so she says, I can cry at the drop of a penny, in a drop of a hat. So it's very easy for me. So what is the solution? Of course, that crying must be from within. It's not just acting, that you make-believe crying. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. The spiritual longing is what is meant here. There's a beautiful Bengali song. It's a beautiful Bengali song which goes like this. I'll translate it on the fly. If in this life, O Lord, I do not see thee, if I do not get thy vision in this life, let me remember, let me not forget, let me remember. In lives to come, let me be haunted by a pain. A pain of, let me be haunted by this loneliness of, I know not what, but there's something vital which I'm missing, which I do not have. If I spend my life in gathering riches and decorating my house with possessions, in America you do a lot of that, getting stuff into your house. If I decorate my house with all sorts of things, let me be aware, let there be a feeling at the back of my mind that I have not got anything worth having. Until I get you, I have not got. That I did not invite you. Those are the words. Let me not forget that I forgot to invite you to my house. I got everything into my house, but I forgot to invite you to my house. And if in my foolishness, while walking on the road, the path of life, on the roads of life, if I sit down by the dust, if I stop walking and sit down by the dust and play with the dust, and go to sleep in the dust, let me not forget the roads lie ahead, and I have not walked the road yet. All the roads lie unwalked. The path of spiritual life that is still uncovered, that's there. And so on. It goes on like that. Let me be haunted by this feeling of spiritual loneliness. That is a pain which I know not what I am sad, but there's a sadness always, because I don't have thee in my life. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. For they shall inherit the earth. You see, this is not a very popular teaching, because our culture this day, not only in America but all over the world now, is an aggressive culture, is a me-first culture, pushing myself forward. But spiritual wisdom lies in the opposite. It lies not in aggression but in humility. It lies not in me but in thou. So, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. And there are other teachings are there. I'll be running out of time. I have to cover that also. Very beautiful teachings. Blessed are they that hunger for the righteousness' sake. Hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be fulfilled. Hunger and thirst for righteousness means, first of all, we hunger and thirst for things of the world, money, success, relationships, so on. But hungering for being a good person, for being a decent person, for being truthful, for being unselfish, that is the beginning of spiritual life. Morality is always the beginning of spiritual life. Often, this is a critique of some of the approaches to religion these days, where we preach different types of meditation, different sophisticated spiritual techniques, philosophical analysis. And there are many of these direct teachings, where you know that you are God, and that's it. So what do I have to do? And they don't tell you what you have to do. And there is no emphasis at all, or little or no emphasis on morality. It's not taken as being very fashionable, not very popular. It's not very glamorous to, when you're told to tell the truth and be self-controlled and be unselfish. All that is not very glamorous. It's much more glamorous to meditate and learn half a dozen different techniques of meditation. I'm reminded of this man who went to a yoga teacher in India, and he says, Swami, teach me yoga. And yoga, has 8 steps. And the first 2 steps are analogous to this, yama and niyama. They are spiritual disciplines. So the Swami said, well, first you have to tell the truth, and you have to be non-violent, and you have to have self-control. And the man got impatient. I know all that. Tell me how to meditate. Tell me how to sit and control my breath. Tell me how to meditate. Now this works best in Hindi. I'll translate. I'll tell you first in Hindi and then translate. Ashtanga yoga means 8-limbed yoga. 8, because there are 8 parts, so 8 limbs of yoga. Ashtanga yoga. So the Swami said, that person said, I know these things, but you just skip ahead, you just tell me how to sit and how to breathe and how to meditate. The Swami said, आप अष्टांग योग सीखेंगे या विकलांग योग सीखेंगे? Now, let me translate that. Ashtanga means with 8 limbs. And if you leave the first 2 limbs, which are spiritual discipline, morality and self-control and all discipline, yama and niyama. So you have 6 limbs, 2 limbs have been cut off. So that's a handicapped yoga. A person who does not have full use of 2 of the limbs to begin with, the basics. So, yes, those are not glamorous, but they are the very basis of spiritual life. The pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Swami Prabhupada, he says how once in Banaras, in the monastery, there were monks, 2 groups of monks were quarreling with each other. And monks do quarrel, yes. Don't be surprised. So they were quarreling with each other, and they complained to Swami Brahmananda, who was the president of the order, and they expected that some action will be taken, some will be expelled, or something will happen. Swami Brahmananda, on the contrary, said, don't do anything, I'm coming there. And he went over to that monastery. And then people there were expecting they'll all be called, there'll be meetings and negotiations and whatnot. He didn't do any of that. He just said, every morning all of you should come and meditate in my presence. They used to come and sit in front of him and meditated. And in a few days, what happened was, all of them felt an elevation. They felt that, why should we be so small? They want something, let them have it. That's all right. It's nothing very important. It's a question of that person's opinion and my opinion. So let's respect that person. And that's how, after some time, the quarrels were settled. I'm reminded of the story of the desert fathers, the early desert fathers. Two ascetics living in the desert, maybe a century after the Christ. And one day, and they were very austere people, and almost nothing in the world. One day, one of these old desert fathers said to the other of them, he said, "Brother, today we are going to quarrel. Like worldly people quarrel, we are going to quarrel today. Let's have the experience of quarreling." "All right, brother, how do we quarrel?" "Well, here's this brick. I shall say it is mine, and then you will say it is mine. And I shall say, no, it's mine, and you will say, no, it's mine. And in this way we shall quarrel." And then they started. So they started. The first one said, "Brother, this is mine." And the other one replied, "Of course it is yours." And that was the end of it. That was the end of it. But you can do that when you are big. You can do that when you are big. The mother who sits with the last piece of pie or cake and she's waiting for the children to come home from school. You look at the difference. The siblings, maybe brothers or sisters, they'll try to grab the last piece of cake because if I don't get it, he or she will get it. My brother or sister will get it. I want it first because that's the last piece. But the mother doesn't do that. She never thinks, let me finish it up before the kids get home. Because then they'll... No, she will do just the opposite. I hope the kids get home soon and so that they can have it. I'll save it for the kids. And that makes her happy. She doesn't feel it's less for me. She feels happier if the kids have it. Because she's bigger. They are included in her love. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. And blessed are they that are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. So beautiful. Should I touch a little bit upon that? We are almost out of time.
No, you go another.
No.
But not long.
Not long, yes.
10, 15 minutes.
No. There's this Swami who gave a talk in Thailand, I think. He told me later on. They were vice chancellors. Here you call them presidents of universities. And they are big people, They are teachers who have become teachers of teachers, and they are the top of their profession. Teachers love to talk, and presidents of universities love to talk even more, because everybody listens when they talk. So this president of a university, in a conference in Bangkok, in Thailand, he said to the organizers, "How long can I speak?" The organizers said, "As long as you want, sir, but we leave at 5 o'clock. So you can speak as long as you want. We leave at 5 o'clock. Okay, very briefly, this is nothing different from what the Lord Jesus Christ was saying. He was saying it much better, I think, in a much more poetic way, much more in a way which touches the heart. This is more cold and philosophical because it's from Advaita Vedanta. These are the spiritual preparations for Vedanta. These are the preparatory disciplines. There are these fourfold preparations called sadhana chatushtaya. One is viveka, having an intuition that there is something permanent. The world is impermanent. There is something permanent, as permanent spiritual reality. If we don't know it yet, we have some kind of faith, some kind of belief, some kind of working hypothesis. There is something called God or Brahman or Atman, whatever. That's called viveka, being able to distinguish between the two. Then vairagya, a love for what is permanent and eternal and spiritual, and letting go, dispassion for the non-eternal, temporary, transient world. Then comes Shat Sampatti, these 6 disciplines, 6-fold discipline. They are part of one discipline, the 6-fold. Basically, what does it mean? It means, Shama means control of the mind. In one word, quietude of the mind, a quietness of the mind. The mind, we are trained to regard it as an enemy in spiritual life, but actually it is not. The mind, the quiet mind, the pure mind, the mind in its natural state runs to God. It runs to God. We disturb it We pour all garbage into it. We collect from the world and carefully put all garbage into the mind. And when mind is full of distraction and worry and anxiety, we complain. The mind is an obstruction to spiritual life. It is not an obstruction to spiritual life. It is our greatest aid in spiritual life. A quiet mind, shama. And that is supported by dhamma. Dhamma is a control of the external organs. The eye. Why do you have to see everything that the latest Star Wars movie is out there? I must go and see it. Stand in queue for in line for hours together and go see the latest Star. Why? You've seen how many? 6. So let the 7th go. Let it be. And let the new generation watch this Star Wars. By the way, I don't know how many of you know there are deep Vedantic roots to Star Wars. Yes. George Lucas, he consulted with Joseph Campbell, who was a disciple of Swami Nikhilananda. Mary Louise Burke has written a beautiful article about this. And many of the ideas of Vedanta, in slightly different forms, are in Star Wars, are in the Star Wars franchise. And that came from Joseph Nikhilananda to Joseph Campbell to George Lucas and to Star Wars.
Joseph Campbell, who wrote Myth of Power?
Yes, the same person. Same person, yes. He was very close to the Vedanta Society of New York.
He was?
Yes.
Why did he didn't believe there were other, I saw him on PBS, he didn't believe there were other planets that human life could exist on. Bill Moyer was interviewing.
Bill Moyer was
And
interviewing.
I was like, I just
Maybe.
turned off from that. I was like,
Might be.
and Jackie Kennedy was his editor of that book, I think.
Okay. So, but he was close to Nikhilananda and got many of the ideas of Vedanta from him. Yeah. But it's not all that unknown, because I googled it recently. I said that, and then I thought maybe I should check up on that. And I googled it. It's fairly pretty well known. You will immediately get hits if you say Star Wars Vedanta, and immediately you'll get Joseph Campbell and George Lucas and Vedanta, and you'll get that on the net. So, control of the sense organs. The eyes, the ears want to hear something. They want to, one of the things which the ears want to hear is what people are saying about me. Immediately, we want to listen. Yes, what did he say about me? If he says something good, I'm happy. Especially if they're saying something bad, I'm anxious about it. What are they saying about me? I remember when I was a brahmachari, a new monk, a novice. Once I was walking with a senior Swami in Deoghar where I joined. And instead of taking the usual path, there were people standing at the end of the road. The Swami, he said, let's take this path. I said, why? He said, because they are talking about me. I don't want to go down that path and disturb them. Let them talk. Let's go by this way. You see, because they are talking about me, I will not listen. Let them talk. Dhamma, control of the sense organs. Uparati, once you have quietened the mind and the sense organs down, don't let it go, go back into the world. Our problem is we may momentarily control it, bring it to center it, but again it flows back into the world. Stop that flowing back into the world. That's uparati. Restrain it from again going back into the world. Titiksha, which is putting up with the dualities, heat and cold, praise and blame, which is much more difficult to put up with than heat and cold, and success and failure and things like that. Dualities of the world which trouble us. Even illness and health. I can't meditate today because I've got this little pain in my leg, so today no meditation. Then there's no spirituality, no kingdom of heaven. So, people put up with so much trouble when they're working for money. People put up with so much trouble when they're working for achievement, awards, things like that in the world. Can we not put up with a little bit of trouble for God? Titiksha. And Shraddha. A deep faith. Not unjustified, not in dogma, but a working faith. Like the teachers say so, the books say so, people have experienced this. So let me take it for granted that it is possible, let me try. If you don't have that much, you won't begin. So this is just enough to begin with. And as we proceed, of course, we will verify it for ourselves. And samadhana. The quietened mind, the restrained mind, when we focus it on the Atman, the self within, that is samadhana. There's a lot more to be said, and there are some interesting things to understand about this. but we have no time. So this is the third of the preparations called Shat Sampatti, the sixfold treasure. This is the treasure. You are on a spiritual journey. When you are on a journey, you need money, wealth to spend on the path. And this is the wealth that you need. If we don't have that, then spiritual life will be difficult, will be uncomfortable. And then the fourth one is mumukshutvam, a great desire to be free of this world, a great desire for God, a yearning for God, and the hunger and thirst after righteousness. That one, the fourth one. So, sadhan chatushtay, viveka, vairagya, shat sampatti, mukshutvam. 4 of them, but the third one includes these 6. That is also Sermon on the Mount. We read philosophy, we try to meditate. None of it really seems to work. Sit for meditation, you feel sleepy. Read philosophy, you get confused. Why does it not work? It does not work because we have not developed these ones. It does not work because we do not pay heed to the Sermon on the Mount. When we develop those qualities, meditation is going to be easy. Philosophy is going to be illuminating rather than confusing. I pray to the Lord Jesus Christ to bless us all on this Christmas and in the years to come. May that light which was in Bethlehem, may that light come to our hearts and illumine the darkness of our hearts. May we find that love which cannot be extinguished. That beautiful, eternal love which is there. Let us notice it. Let us turn to it in our lives. Thank you very much and have a very good night.